Joining me now is a man who needs no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. Michael Cohen is a former personal attorney for the former president. He's the host of the Mea Culpa podcast, on which I just made an appearance. He's the author of the books Revenge and Disloyal. He's got a very active Twitter account, which you follow. If you follow, you'll learn he's having great difficulty with the self-cleaning feature on his oven. Michael, I don't know if you sorted that out, but I appreciate you taking some time away to join us this morning. You and I have the same question here. If the list of things that Donald Trump has alleged to have done were half as long or a tenth as long, in a normal society, the Republican Party would jettison him and find someone else out of the 330 million eligible people, or whatever, however many eligible people there are to run for president in America, to have him run. And yet they can't quit Trump. What's going on?
I don't know, but if at least one of the things or one document put Reality Winner in prison for 5 years, the man is escaping every accountability that exists for you, for me, for all of your viewers, and for this country. He seems to be operating outside the law. And I'm with you on that 100%. We have 330 plus million people in America. Are you really trying to tell me that a guy who's, and I say it all the time, who's a racist, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semite is the best that the GOP can present as a nominee or as a president? It makes absolutely no sense to me at all. And I'm starting to see people walking away from him. But then the question is, what about that core support, those maggots that just refuse to step away, that are continuing to support him and to feed his coffers?
That's the reason, though, because there are other Republicans, some of whom hold office, who actually think they would be a better president than Donald Trump would be. But they understand that they cannot alienate that core. And Donald Trump seems to get that, even with Fox abandoning him, even with the New York Post abandoning him, even with his own daughter saying, hey, I'm not sticking around for this other campaign. I've got a family to raise. With all that happening, Donald Trump knows that he has control over a percentage of the Republican Party without whom someone else can't win the presidency.
And this is a real problem. This is a problem for the GOP. So maybe they lose this upcoming election, but they save their party. They need to do something within which to isolate him. Now, my belief is that he will have criminal prosecution. I believe the January 6th committee will hold him. I believe that he's going to be held accountable for the Mar-a-Lago documents, plus all that. Question for you, as we were going through that. What if, hypothetically, there were more than just 2 or 3 documents that were turned over, right, and he decided that I'm going to keep those because they're really important. I'm going to go shove them someplace else. Maybe that's the reason that no lawyer in his employ is willing to sign an affidavit.
To say that
why don't we get Donald to sign that affidavit?
Right.
Why don't we have him attest under the penalties of perjury that there are no more documents? And that way, if in fact there are more documents, and I suggest that they start searching every place that Donald has been, now he becomes accountable, and of course it would then be a criminal charge.
Right. You've actually implied that other people need to sign these documents too, Don Jr. and Jared, and everywhere that he's been, because who knows where Donald stuffed stuff. But you make an interesting point. You've argued that he may use his presidential run as leverage to get away from some of this prosecution, and the fact that there may be other documents, or that he's got copies of these documents. Just let's remind our viewers of what you're talking about here. You're saying that Donald Trump maybe gets charged with something and says, hold on, I got stuff. I got stuff I can give to North Korea or Iran or whatever. Obviously, that would be a crime if he said that. Or I'm running for president. You don't believe he's actually going to run for president, but you believe he's using this as insulation.
I do. August 31, not too far after I was on your show, I turned around and I put out a tweet that said that they need to go. It's almost like Where's Waldo? Follow where Donald has gone every single day. And those people are the ones that you have to speak to. You need to search those properties. But I believe, and I've been saying it all along, that he's going to use those documents as leverage. You want to mess with me? You want to play with me? You want to indict me? This is how he thinks, like a mob boss. You want to come after me? I have top secret documents. Let's say, hypothetically, the location of our nuclear silos. You really want that in the hands of Mohammed bin Salman or Iran or North Korea or any of our other adversaries? I'm willing to burn down the country because you're looking to burn me. That's how Donald Trump thinks.
Because a lot of people are thinking, and the way we discuss it sometimes is that he's willing to burn down the Republican Party, but it's actually substantially more serious.
Much bigger than just the GOP. He'll burn the whole country down because the country elected not to reinstate him as president of the United States. And so his ego, that fragile ego of his, is so hurt that he's trying now to make up all sorts of, let's tear up the Constitution. Let's go ahead and let's just reinsert me as president.
He said that, by the way.
Yes, I'm not making this up.
And then he put a post out the next day saying the media is making this big thing about me, saying that I was going to terminate the Constitution. He said it. He posted it on his own social media platform.
Well, how dare you listen to him? Right? That's what he's really trying to say. You know, don't listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm thinking.
Right.
And it's the same thought process that, of course, declassified the documents.
Right. I thought they were declassified.
The whole thing is insane, which is why I keep trying to say we need to put the maniac back into the box. And we need to turn around and we need to implore the GOP and other members of Congress as part of the Republican Party. And, you know, I'm a Democrat, so I believe any Democrat could beat Donald Trump, and I believe that he knows it. And that's why he's running scared right now.
Michael, good to see you, my friend. Thank you. I know you've got to get home and continue to clean your oven. So good luck with that. Michael Cohen is the former personal attorney for Donald Trump. He's the host of the excellent Mea Culpa podcast. He's the author of the books Revenge and Disloyal.